violent, vicious people, the leadership, violent, vicious people. They killed 32,000 protesters over the last 3 weeks. They put out a memo 2 days ago saying, if you protest, we will shoot you and kill you in the streets. And somebody said, oh, there's not that many protests. Well, first of all, there are bombs going off all over the place. But even if there weren't, who's going to do that? You know, who's going to do it? They don't have any guns, and the other ones have latest in line machine gun, right? And every form of gun you can have. They shoot them right through the middle of the head. They're violent people. If they had a nuclear weapon, they would use it. And sometimes I'll have some of the people that, you know, feel very strongly, like I do about wars. And I say, do you think Iran is violent, and do you think their people are violent? Yes, leadership. Do you think they should have a nuclear weapon, which is massive power? I don't even want to discuss how powerful, because it's depressing. And they said, no, they shouldn't have. Definitely they shouldn't have. They said, and you don't want to fight war? No, we don't want to fight war. So these are naive people that frankly are stupid. If you believe that Iran should have a nuclear weapon, there's something wrong with you, because they would use it within, the only question is within 1 hour if they get it, or 1 day. They will use it, and they will blow up the entire Middle East, not just Israel. They'll start with Israel, but they will blow up. And you got to see that when they unexpectedly started sending missiles to every country within 1,000 miles of them. I mean, they're blowing up countries that were neighbors, not necessarily some friends. They actually were blowing up some friends. They were blowing up the people that handle their accounts. They're sending thousands of missiles into countries that didn't expect to be in the war because they wanted to take over the Middle East. And if I didn't terminate Barack Hussein Obama's horrible Iran nuclear deal, which I did in my first term, one of the dumbest deals, perhaps the dumbest deal because of the danger involved, you would have had them have a nuclear weapon 3 years ago, maybe 4 years ago. They would have used it, blown up the Middle East, and they would have then come after us. And if these gorgeous B-2 bombers, give me that bomber, Andrews. Let me just hug that little sucker. Give me that bomber over there. Thank you. You knew immediately which one. This looks small, but in person it's very big. Because it's the only plane capable of carrying a 200,000-pound bomb. So I don't know how they do it, because it's very sleek and nice, but it carries a lot of weapons and there's a lot of bombs. But had I not sent this incredible machine, times numerous others, to hit Iran at midnight with no moon, dead dark, every single bomb was dropped right down the chute that it was supposed to hit. How they do it, who knows? Nobody else can figure. No other country can do it. No other country has our military or even close. And I think we've probably proven that with Venezuela and now with because we have done a number on Iran. But if I didn't do that, if I didn't decimate, I call it their nuclear dust, they would have had a nuclear weapon within 1 month after that bombing took place. And they would have used it on first Israel and then the Middle East. And you know that because all of those missiles that were launched against their neighbors were set long ago, long before they knew they would be using them this quickly. Had we not done this, you would have had a nuclear war that would have evolved into World War III. And more important, this is a war that there would have been nothing left. So we've done a great thing. The people that say it's okay for a very sick ideology, a very sick country in terms of its leadership. Very good people, great people.
What you just watched is not a military briefing. It is not an intelligence assessment. It is not a statement verified by the Joint Chiefs, the Defense Intelligence Agency, or any documented source entered into the public record. What you just watched is a president sitting in front of cameras making specific factual claims about a foreign nation, its intentions, its capabilities, and the consequences of his decisions, without a single piece of cited evidence. And the press corps in that room let every word pass unchallenged. So we are going to do what that room did not. We are going to examine the claims. We are going to apply the standard of evidence. And we are going to deliver a verdict. Let us begin with the centerpiece claim. The President of the United States stated, on camera, that if Iran obtained a nuclear weapon, they would use it within 1 hour, or 1 day at the absolute latest. He stated this as fact, not as an assessment, not as a possibility, not as a concern raised by intelligence analysts. As fact. This claim has no verified basis in any declassified intelligence document. The official position of the United States intelligence community, as stated in multiple public assessments, is that Iran has not made a decision to build a nuclear weapon, and that Iranian leadership has historically treated nuclear capability as a deterrent, not a first-strike instrument. That is not a liberal position. That is not a conservative position. That is the documented assessment of the agencies whose sole function is to evaluate exactly this question. The President dismissed that framework entirely. He replaced it with a personal certainty. He said these are violent, vicious people. He said the leadership is violent and vicious. He cited as evidence that Iran killed 32,000 protesters over the last 3 weeks. Let us examine that number. 32,000 protesters in 3 weeks. That figure has not appeared in any verified human rights report, any United Nations documentation, or any credible journalistic investigation of the protests inside Iran. The actual documented figures from human rights organizations covering the most severe crackdowns in Iran's recent history, including the 2019 protests, place casualties in the hundreds, not tens of thousands. The President did not cite a source. He did not attribute the number to any agency, organization, or report. He stated it as established fact before a live audience and a press pool that did not ask a single follow-up question. This is the evidentiary standard we are now operating under. And it matters. Because this is not a cable news opinion segment. These statements were made by a sitting president justifying an active military operation against a sovereign nation. The claims he made are the public rationale for a war. They will be cited. They will be referenced. They will be used to evaluate whether this administration told the American people the truth about why this military action was taken and what it was expected to achieve. Now we go to the second claim embedded in that same statement. The President stated that Iran sent thousands of missiles into neighboring countries. Countries that were their neighbors, some of them their friends, some of them the people that handle their accounts, because Iran wanted to take over the entire Middle East. This is a strategic assessment of Iranian foreign policy stated as if it were established fact. The documented reality of Iranian foreign policy is considerably more complex. Iran's regional strategy, as assessed by every major foreign policy institution and intelligence body that has published on the subject, is rooted in deterrence, proxy maintenance, and regional influence, not the territorial conquest of neighboring states. Iran does not have the conventional military capacity to occupy and hold the territory of Saudi Arabia, the way, Kuwait, and Qatar simultaneously. No serious military analyst has advanced this as a credible operational scenario. The President presented it as the obvious and undeniable truth. And then, this is the part that requires careful attention, he pivoted immediately from that claim to hugging a model of a B-2 bomber. He asked an aide to bring him the model. He said he wanted to hug it. He commented on its aesthetics. He described watching the bombing from the Situation Room as if narrating a film he enjoyed. We will now go to the second clip.
Long before they knew they would be using them this quickly. Had we not done this, you would have had a nuclear war that would have evolved into World War III. And more important, this is a war that there would have been nothing left. So we've done a great thing. The people that say it's okay for a very sick ideology, a very sick country in terms of its leadership, very good people, great people. But the people that say that I think they're actually, they're either evil or they're stupid. So if you believe that Iran should not have a nuclear weapon, they should not have it, then you have to absolutely love what I've done, because in 2 weeks we have decimated them. They have no Navy, they have no Air Force, they have no anti-aircraft weapons, they have no leadership. The leadership is gone. But then they set up a new leadership to go and name a new leader, and that leadership is gone. And now they think maybe the sun is gone. They're all gone. My biggest problem is I have no idea who we're talking to, because nobody ever heard of any of these people. They're all dead. But we did a job for the world, not a job for us, for the whole world. We took the worst country in 50 years and maybe longer from the ideological standpoint, a country that wanted to blow up the world, a country that is sick, and it has a religious fervor. And when you add religion, you know, people don't realize more people died in religious wars than every other war put together. And that's what you would have had here. And it was a terrible thing. I'm very proud of what we did. And I think JD understands better than most. If you give Iran a nuclear weapon, at least a very substantial part of the world would be blown up, and it'll be used almost immediately. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. President.
You don't mind if I keep this here, do you? Isn't that a beautiful thing? You know, I used to look at it, and I said, it's a piece of art, but how can it be effective? It's so stealth. Think of it, Peter. 1 in the morning, it flies in, and they say, sir, they're in Iranian airspace. And I say, oh, and I'm watching it from the Situation Room with a couple of other very smart people, including some good generals, real generals, not television generals. And all of a sudden you see that dive, they start diving, and sure, and you see him 30,000, 20,000. Boy, I said, that was a lot. They went down fast to aim it. And they know they're coming, and they're smart, and they never saw them. And they're firing a little bit, but they don't know what they're firing at because they can't see a thing. And then you hear the biggest explosions that anybody's ever heard. Those are the biggest bombs. Outside of nuclear, those are the biggest bombs. And you say, what technology we have. What a great country. I built it, largely, I built it during my first term. I built it. I didn't know I'd have to use it this much in my second term. But we had an incompetent president. We had an incompetent administration. And if that group of people in any form, whether it's Kamala, him, it doesn't matter, would have had another 4 years, we would have had no country left. Yeah, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. You say you're doing a job for the rest of the world. In your conversations with your counterparts, are they thanking you? What are their conversations like when you talk about this military conflict that's taking place in Iran?
Well, they should be thanking me, because many of them get 90%. China, as an example, should be thanking us, but I don't expect to thank you, but they should be thanking us. Japan gets 95%, China 91%. Many of the countries, South Korea gets a tremendous percentage of their oil and therefore their energy from the Straits, or as they call it, the Strait. And they should be not only thanking us, they should be helping us. What does surprise me is that they're not eager to help. There are a couple. We'll be announcing some names soon. There are some that really were right up front. I would announce their name now, other than maybe they prefer it not being announced for whatever reason. I will say this: it's a lot easier to get people today than it was 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago, before we destroyed before we obliterated the country, before we took out, because they're down to about 8% of their missiles. They're down to a small portion of their drones. And we've demolished many of their factories where they make the missiles and the drones, and the rest are all following. Our military has been amazing. We hit Carg Island, took out every single thing on Carg Island except one thing. We left the pipes, because if we take out the pipes, it takes a long time to build them. And at some point, something is going to happen that's positive with respect to those pipes. But
let us now perform a forensic examination of the victory declaration you just heard. The President stated the following specific claims as documented facts. Iran has no navy. Iran has no air force. Iran has no anti-aircraft weapons. Iran has no leadership. These are not rhetorical flourishes. These are verifiable military assessments. If they are true, they are among the most significant military achievements in modern American history. If they are false, or even substantially exaggerated, then the American people are being given a fabricated picture of a war being fought in their name, with their military and their money. So let us apply the evidentiary standard. Claim 1. Iran has no navy. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps Navy operates in the Persian Gulf and the Strait of Hormuz. It is a coastal and asymmetric force, fast attack craft, submarines, and the mine-laying vessels the president himself described in detail later in this same interview. A military force capable of conducting mine-laying operations in the Strait of Hormuz, which the president acknowledged remains a threat to international shipping, is, by definition, a navy that exists and functions. The president stated Iran has no navy. In the same interview, he described in operational detail the mine-laying capability of that same navy. These two statements cannot both be true. Claim 2. Iran has no air force. Iran's air force, prior to any American strikes, consisted of aging but operational aircraft, F-14s acquired before 1979, Russian-supplied aircraft, and domestically produced variants. The destruction of an air force requires confirmed battle damage assessments on every airframe, every runway, every maintenance facility, and every command and control node. No such comprehensive battle damage assessment has been made public. The president stated, as absolute fact, that Iran has no air force. The Department of Defense has not confirmed this claim at the level of completeness the president asserted. Claim 3. Iran has no anti-aircraft weapons. Iran operates one of the most layered air defense networks in the Middle East, a combination of Russian-supplied S-300 systems, domestically produced Bavar 373 systems, and short-range point defense assets distributed across the country. The destruction of every one of these systems would require confirmed strike data on every known and suspected site. That data has not been released publicly. The president stated it as accomplished fact. Claim 4. Iran has no leadership. The president stated that Iran's leadership is gone. Then, in the same breath, he acknowledged that Iran had already appointed new leadership. He said that new leadership is also gone, and that possibly a third tier of leadership is also gone. He then said his biggest problem is that he has no idea who he is talking to, because nobody has ever heard of any of these people. Read that back carefully. The President of the United States, in the middle of an active military operation, publicly stated that he does not know who is in charge of the country his military is bombing. That is not a declaration of victory. That is a declaration of strategic uncertainty. Now we examine the structural problem underneath all of these claims. Every specific claim the president made in this interview is, in principle, verifiable. Battle damage assessments exist. Satellite imagery exists. Signal intelligence exists. Human intelligence exists. The question is not whether the evidence exists. It is whether the American people have been given access to any of it. They have not. What they have been given is a president describing, in real time, watching bombs fall on a country from a situation room, calling it a great thing, saying we hit them so hard like nobody's ever been hit, and then asking an aide to bring him a model plane to hug. This is the public record of how this administration has chosen to account for an active military operation. Now, we apply the legal and institutional framework. The War Powers Resolution requires the President to notify Congress within 48 hours of committing U.S. forces to armed conflict. It limits unauthorized military engagements to 60 days without congressional authorization. The constitutional authority to declare war belongs to Congress, not the executive branch. Members of Congress have raised questions about whether the legal framework governing this operation is sound, and whether the administration has provided sufficient notification and justification under the law. The president did not address this in the interview. He was not asked about it. He was asked whether he could wrap up the war this week. He said yes, sure, okay, and then said he did not think so. He was asked whether world leaders were thanking him. He said they should be thanking him. He mentioned that some countries had disappointed him by not sending military assets. He said he told the British Prime Minister, a head of government of a sovereign democratic ally, that the Prime Minister did not need to speak to his team or his people and could just make a decision on his own. That is the President of the United States telling the leader of the United Kingdom that parliamentary accountability is an inconvenience. This is the behavioral pattern that the evidentiary record documents. Specific claims made without cited sources. Victory declared before verified outcomes. Strategic uncertainty described in the same breath as absolute confidence. Military operations framed as personal achievements. Allies treated as subordinates. And a press environment that generates questions about which former president called him, rather than whether the stated rationale for this war is factually supported. The American people deserve answers to specific questions. What is the verified battle damage assessment for Iranian naval, air, and air defense assets? What is the confirmed status of Iranian leadership as of this date? What is the legal authorization under which this military operation was conducted? What is the defined objective, and what are the defined conditions under which this operation concludes? These questions are not political. They are not partisan. They are the minimum standard of accountability that applies to any government that commits its military forces to combat. The interview you watched today did not answer any of them. The record is what it is. The claims are on tape. The facts will be established, either by the administration that made them or by the historical record that follows every war. We will be here either way. Stay with us.